This is the Benefits Buzz Podcast, your weekly pulse on what's happening in the world of employee benefits. Brought to you by your friends at WEX, who believe in simplifying benefits for everyone. Now listen up and let's get buzzed!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Benefits Buzz. I'm one of your hosts, Eric Piella, and we've got a really fun, special episode for you today. For those of you who are watching and not listening, you'll see us. We are on stage here at WEX's Spark event. Nearly 1,000 partners and customers of WEX are gathered here to talk about what's happening in our industry. And we thought this is a perfect time to talk with one of our most popular guests of the Benefits Buzz podcast series, Melanie Tinto, WEX's CHRO. Melanie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Eric. And, Spark is one of my most favorite events of the year. So I get so much energy from seeing our customers and partners here and really excited to be on Benefits Buzz today.
Yeah, and we're on the main stage. This is so great.
This is amazing. This is amazing.
Well, we are here to talk about a really important topic, which I'm super pumped that you agreed to come on and talk with us about, which is how do you nurture employee engagement all the way through their life cycle as an employee, when we're talking everything from onboarding through retirement, and the importance of really attending to that engagement. And so maybe we'll kick off the conversation with just how do you kind of define like this life cycle? Like what are some of the stages you think about when you look at the employee base and when you think about engaging with them? How do you kind of break that up in your mind?
Yeah, Eric, you really nailed it when you talked about the whole end-to-end employee life cycle. You're talking hire to retire.
Right.
And so when you think about that, there's several stages within the employee life cycle. You start with attraction. It actually starts before you even get in the door of the company, right? You're talking about how do you brand your organization? What's the culture? What's the information on social media that's out there about your company that's going to attract you to the organization you want to go to? So that's kind of step one as you think about the employee life cycle. When you think about the next step, recruitment, right? You get them on the hook, you get them excited about the company, you have a great role and opportunity, and you want to recruit them into the organization. And so that's one of the key areas next that we really think about. How do we really market the organization? How do we make sure we're clear in marketing the role and then bringing them into the company? Mm-hmm. Then you go in, they've started, they've accepted. That's where you hit really the onboarding button. And so onboarding is such a pivotal piece around making sure that the employees really understanding their role and how they fit into the organization. From there, it doesn't stop. It continues. So you go to ongoing retention. So how each and every day do you make sure that your employees want to be at the company, they understand the goals, the values, and they understand how they fit into the organization? And from there, you're thinking about they didn't join just for that role that they started in. They really want to continue their ongoing development. And so what's the accountability of the organization in the employee life cycle? How do we make sure that we're developing them? And then how do we make sure that we're continuing to grow them for succession for our company as well? And then finally, and that could be retirement if you go the whole journey, right? The whole game, the whole enchilada, you want to go to retirement. But the reality is that many people decide for life choices, whether it's a move, whether it's a new role, whether it's a change in career, that they want to explore other avenues. And you really need to think about that transition and be respectful to the employee. Because remember, they can be your customer, they can be your partner. They're also a referral for great talent across the organization for ongoing. When they're referencing, hey, you worked at WEX, did you like it? Mm-hmm. You worked at company A, did you like it? You want to make sure that they're really going to want to speak positively. And you'll see many companies actually have alumni networks, or they'll talk about how do they actually engage their employees along the way. So it's really important that you think about every step. And there is critical, curated pieces to each and every element of it.
When you lay it out like that, it's really quite amazing to unpack all those different phases. And as an HR professional, how do you think strategically about each of those? And I can't wait to unpack that with you because there's a lot to get to. And of course, this podcast is called the Benefits Buzz. So we want to talk about how do benefits play a role in each of those stages. So maybe just kind of briefly, how do you see benefits playing a role, again, kind of across the gamut, if you will?
Yeah, benefits is huge across all of those stages that I just talked about. From the hiring perspective, it can be a competitive talent advantage, right? So if your company has a rich package, the employees or prospective employees are looking at that to say, is this a company that's not only going to nurture me in my career perspective, but also going to take care of me end to end to help me work, live, and thrive? And so benefits plays a critical component, not only from before you get hired, but throughout their entire journey with the company.
Makes sense. I love it. We'll dive into more of that a little bit.
Okay.
Let's start from the beginning. So let's start with onboarding, because I want to kind of peel that next layer of the onion, if you will, for each of these. Because if I'm a listener, I want to understand, okay, there's a lot to think through. So let's dive into that first part. How does onboarding and how do you think about employee engagement strategically when it comes to employee engagement? So can you talk about some of the things that HR pros should be thinking about in those first experiences? They say opinions are created within the first, whatever it is, half an hour of starting a company. How do you really build a positive experience then?
Yeah, I would say onboarding is one of the most critical pieces of the employee life cycle. So you have recruiting, and you used to hear about recruiting as being the sales piece of it, right? There's recruiting and then there's the reality of the job. And you want to make sure that those two really reconcile.
Right.
There's nothing worse than having an employee experience a great recruiting experience and then come into the company and have it be completely different in terms of the words and the actions of that organization. And so onboarding is a great step. There's a couple pieces to it. There's the logistical onboarding, which is this company cares about me. I have my equipment day one. I know if I'm a remote employee or a hybrid employee, if I have a desk or if we have sign up seating on a daily basis. I know what I need to do to sign up for benefits, right? So there's the tactical pieces and logistical pieces of onboarding, but then more importantly, there's the pieces around what do I do my first 90 days? Do I have a peer or a buddy in the organization that's going to help me get to know the organization? Do I understand the culture and the values and how this organization makes money? Do I feel like I'm part of the fabric of it? And did I make a really good decision to join here? And then more importantly, what do I need to do? What are my goals? Have I spent time with my manager? Do I have a list of people that I get to know? And so if I'm joining a company, and Eric's on my list, I want to make sure that I set up time with you and then ask you for 2 or 3 more people that you think I should meet so that I get a good, rich experience. And that's what starts to build the reinforcement that I made the right decision to join the company and that I'm going to stay there because what I thought in recruiting actually is happening in reality and onboarding. And that's where you gain traction in terms of people staying not just short term, but over that greater than 1 year happens in that first 90 days.
Yeah, you got to avoid that, for lack of a better term, that buyer's remorse.
Exactly.
I was so excited, but yeah, and as a manager myself, making sure that I'm really, in tandem with the HR team, making sure that we have a great experience for that employee socialization and that onboarding. I love it. I've got a really good stat here that my producer pulled for me. It says WEX recently conducted a survey, of over 60,000 benefit participants to understand more about their experience. When the respondents were asked on a scale of 1 to 10, how important health benefits are when they're considering a job, the mean score was a 9.11. Okay. So what are some examples, knowing that, Melanie, the types of employee benefits that play that crucial role to get, maybe it's attract that top talent to your organization and then have them be excited about it when they come on board?
Yeah. So think about benefits as being the whole person, right? So again, you have the job, but then you also need to think about well-being. You need to think about your family. You need to think about all the elements that help you, again, work, live, and thrive. So medical is obviously tops the charts, right? Health, you've got your vision, you've got your dental, you've got a lot of investment vehicles. So retirement, what is my match? Does the company match? How long do I have to be there before I see that? Right. What are the other facets of investing? Do I have a health savings account? Do I have time off? If so, what does that look like? And then you see some richer programs such as volunteer time off. I want to give back to the community, right? Do they have volunteer time off? Do they have sabbatical programs? What's really those differentiators? And also what's critical for that employee to really consider to say this company not only aligns with me from a culture perspective, but is also going to take care of me and grow with me, whether that's through well-being or through financial wellness.
Right. And I imagine a lot of just listening to understand I'm sure there are things trend, right? People, what's important to people, obviously it's different for every individual, but we also know that benefits kind of trend. And in any given year, something's really more important, flexibility, whatever might be benefits. And so that's really key. I love that. If we, just for sake of time, if we think more about the retention,
Yes.
okay, just like maybe any other profession, HR pros also have to provide value and ROI, that the work and the benefits that they provide are creating employee loyalty, and they're retaining employees. So how should HR pros think about, okay, they've been here for a while, how can I think about benefits as a way to retain, but also measure their impact ongoing?
Right, absolutely. So what we do is an annual survey. So we actually listen to all of our employees and understand what do they need, what's highest priority. So we actually have them rank order what their benefits are and what they actually want to see. We also look at utilization rates. We look at exit data. So why did employees leave? Were there some trends related to benefits? And then we also look at external benchmark data, because what you want to make sure is you understand where are the rest of the organizations going so that you can stay market competitive as well.
Makes sense. And if I drill in specifically, how do you feel like the benefits themselves are integrated into those same strategies? Is there anything that you would call out there?
Yeah, so when I think about the employee perspective, and again, you're going to have folks listening on the podcast today around, anything from I have a small number of benefits to I have a plethora of benefits. The reality of whatever you have on that spectrum is, how do you actually communicate those benefits to your employees? Right. How do you make sure you're getting the maximum utilization of those benefits, right? And so I see this all the time. Benefits leaders want to keep adding to the repository because they'll say we don't have enough. But in reality, they have a great suite of options. They need to communicate those in a meaningful way. And that's not once a year at open enrollment.
Yeah.
That's throughout the year, whether it's, lunch and learns, or whether it's thinking about different financial professionals coming in, or folks talking about HSA Day and other pieces, right? There's definitely different ways to engage employees and making sure that they really truly understand the richness of what they have at their organization.
Yeah, that's music to my ears when you say terms like communicating. And again, part of that poll that we did, that WEX did, was asked, again, how often do you want to hear? And 71% of respondents said they want to hear or learn more on either a monthly or quarterly basis. So we can't just communicate once a year during open enrollment time. You stress the importance of having these key moments that matter, I think, is a really big phrase in the community, around the HR community. So how do we create those and have them see the importance of that? I love that. Work-life balance, always something that we love to talk about. So specifically when it comes to wellness, you talked about thinking of the entire wellness of an individual and as an employee. How do we really focus on benefits when it comes to long-term employee engagement? So if we're thinking about, I want this employee to stay here for 5, 10, 15 plus years, are there certain strategies or things that you think about from the long game? Are those that you want to make sure and stick around?
Yeah, you need to think about so let's say you started as an individual contributor, right? And so when you're an individual contributor, you just have to think about yourself, right? The reality is as you grow in your career, which is what we want everyone to do, a logical path for people that are successful is to move into a manager track. Right. And so, there's many companies and many individuals that one day they're an individual contributor, the next day they're a manager. It's like, here's the wand and I'm going to make you a manager. And you know how that feels, right?
Absolutely.
And you're like, what do I do?
Right.
And so the reality is you have to help managers and employees understand, one, what's the complexity of that role that they need to play? How do they manage their stress and their resilience through that? And what's the benefits that you offer to do that, whether it's mental well-being, whether that's training and development related to, hey, I think I want to be a manager and here's some training related to that, or I am a manager and I need help from peers and other networks and mentors to really think about, how do I be successful in this? And how do I engage my employees in a meaningful way and make sure that they're now successful? Because you have the burden of making sure not only you individually feel good about what you're doing, but you're accountable for a whole other group of people. And that's a big toll to take on as an individual, to make sure that you're helping other people be successful.
It's a mind shift for sure. And I think I love that we're thinking about that evolution. And maybe I'll ask you even to dive in even deeper there. Are there any Is it training? Is it providing them additional support? Is it career pathing? What are ways that HR pros can really help those managers be great at thinking differently about empowering their employees to be great and understanding how the unique ways they need to motivate them that might be different for each employee that they work with, right?
Right. And I always like to make sure that we offer solutions for folks, whether they have $0 budget, the maximum budget.
Good. Right.
And so, on the $0 budget, it's, do you get a group of people of really successful managers in your company that are helping to peer coach newer managers in the organization? One of the things we used to do at another company was sit around and talk about challenges that we were having and help to get some feedback on how we might address that challenge with our employee base, or if there was an area in engagement that we needed to improvement on, how do we improve that? And then you go all the way down the spectrum of leadership development, richness in employee programs to really start to fine tune individual development plans, et cetera. So it really spreads the gamut in terms of how you can do this. And there's lots of different options out there in the marketplace to help you with that.
Yeah, no, those are great suggestions. I love that. I guess as we think about the life cycle, as we continue along, we're probably towards the retirement end. So whether that's if an organization's lucky enough to have someone that's been tenured there for 20 plus years, or you get someone that's later in their career and they look to retire there, what are some ways, again, you talked about, which near and dear to my heart, is we want to make sure that offboarding experience, whether they're choosing to retire or perhaps going somewhere else, is a really great one as well, because that's part of your brand and part of your story.
Exactly.
What can HR pros do to support employees who are at that phase of their career?
So throughout their career, they want to make sure that they're doing education related to the financial benefits. Some companies have pension plans, other companies have 401k plans. Educating on the value of those and how to actually invest in those plans is really important. Some companies offer, in partnership with vendors, financial wellness so that they can start to understand, what that individual needs and how they need to save for retirement. The other big component to that, and I leverage this myself and have learned a lot, is the health savings accounts. And so, not only is it great if you have that rainy day and you need those dollars near term for a medical emergency, it's always good to have that money in hand. But more importantly, if you can hold it aside, it's an amazing opportunity to have an investment vehicle. And so a lot of folks, I think, are still learning that that's a great way to save for the long term for retirement, and really have a much richer retirement experience as they mature.
Absolutely. And I love that, because that's not something that you want to focus on at the end of your career. That goes back to we need to have these constant communications throughout the life cycle, so that when they get to that point, they put in that work, they've saved the right way, and they can exit with feeling that peace of mind that they've taken those right steps, and that your organization has helped them get to that point and been a part of that journey. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's really important.
Well, good. Well, fantastic conversation. I feel like we whipped through a 40-year career in like 20 minutes. I always love to wrap these with, any final tips, any question I didn't ask you that maybe you would hope I would, or any other in summary kind of thought that you like to give to our listeners about how to really encourage employee engagement across that entire life cycle?
Yeah, I would say just each and every day, think about how you can make each experience better, right? How do you think about your employees? How do you make it better every day? And maybe you had a bad day yesterday, but each and every day is a new day. Hit that reset button and just really think about how you can make it better. And your attitude really conveys on everyone else around you. So take that and just try to build a positive momentum and resilience throughout your organization.
Well said. What a great way to cap the episode.
Yeah.
Melanie, I think you might be a 5-timer on the podcast.
Oh,
we got to get a jacket for you or something. You're such a great guest. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with our listeners. Everyone for tuning, thanks so much for tuning in for another great episode of Benefits Buzz. If you love our podcast, be sure and give us a review, and tune back next week for another episode.
WEX is in the business of simplifying benefits for everyone. Now, although we certainly hope our podcast sparks some aha moments, like that was pretty cool, but of course we cannot provide legal, investment, or financial advice. And, well, therefore, nothing shared in this podcast should be interpreted as such. We encourage you to seek out appropriate professional advice regarding your plans. Hey, congratulations! You made it through our disclaimer. Thanks for listening.